you all. So just to go through our emergency procedures, you know them well. Please make sure your phone is on silent mode, and a reminder to use your microphones. I believe we've got a full house, so no one's online, which is great. Okay, we'll move through to our opening karakia. Please feel free to join me. Whakatakatahau ki te uru, whakatakatahau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hiaki ana te atakura, he tio, hei huka, hei hauhu, ti hei, mauri ora. Apologies, as I mentioned, we've got a full house, which is great. So we'll move through to public comment. Don't believe we've got any members of the public who wish to speak. So we'll move straight through to the Mayoral Statement. So I'd just like to acknowledge that, of course, this is our final full council meeting of the Triennium, but next week's meeting will be a chance for wider reflections and valedictories, so I'll certainly save some of those comments for then. Today is about acknowledging and highlighting what has been delivered since we last met in July. The newly opened Walter Mildenhall Park has already been enjoyed by locals in the wider Ngaengae community. The park includes a new skate park, accessible play, equipment, native planting, and it also marks the completion of the wider Whakatupu Ngaengae revitalisation program. A special moment was also seeing students from Rata Street and Ngaengae Primary return to help finish planting the species they chose last year. Also, seeing some of the poetry on some of the outdoor furniture and seats was pretty special as well. We've also taken a major step forward alongside our partners with Te Wātakamori o Te Wakarangi Riverlink with the sod turning of the Melling part of that project, a pretty significant milestone to reach. Construction has now officially begun on the new grade separated Melling interchange and bridge over the Hutt River, alongside upgrades to walking and cycling links and the relocation of the Melling train station, which will be part of that particular piece of the puzzle. Mauri Tupu has reached a major milestone, thanks to the collective effort of everyone in this room, our community groups, schools, and so many out there in the city. We've now planted over 114,000 native trees and plants across Lower Hutt. That's one for every person who calls the city home. Pretty great accomplishment to get there, and thank you to everyone involved in that. We also recently launched the Locky Docks in Lower Hutt. You'll see just outside the final station's been installed out here outside the council building, and it's great to be able to have free public bike parking stations and make it easier for people to ride, connect, and have a safe place to be able to store their bike and get their bike charged as well. And of course, it is free. What I learned today, actually, in meeting with one of the founders of Big Street Bikers, is that any RFID card will get you access, and it has a unique, obviously, identifier through that. So you can even use your FPOS card, for example, but that's probably not a good example because then people think you have to pay for it. Or your Snapper card or your council ID card you can use to access those stations, which is pretty cool. So that really makes it accessible straight away for everyone. Of course, you can sign up as well. Progress has also been made on the replacement of the Ava Rail footbridge, with government co-funding now confirmed. The new bridge will provide a safe, accessible link for pedestrians and cyclists across the railway corridor, scheduled for 2026. I know that will continue to be reported through to this council. But again, I want to thank you all and also particularly Minister Bishop in what we've been able to get to that, to get the result to ensure that pedestrian access is retained on that vital link. Beyond the physical upgrades, we've also had some important steps in how we shape our city's future. We adopted the new city centre framework, setting out a clear direction. We want our CBD to grow, more connected, more inclusive, and more people-focused. At the same time, we've launched our new event strategy, of course, to bring more life, energy, and economic activity into our streets, parks, and spaces as well. Multi-Fest, a fantastic annual event, reminded us of what it looks like in action when you have community bringing people together, and the vibrant celebration of food, music, art, culture. And I know a number of you were able to attend, and thank you, Deputy Mayor, for being there on my behalf. And I want to finish by acknowledging a well-earned recognition of the organisation. For those of you who don't know, Hutt City Council's AI Evolution program was awarded the Spirit of Service Innovation Award by the Public Service Commission. It's a proud moment for our staff and proof that local government can lead the way in modernising how we work for our residents. So well done, Joe, and well done, Jared, and the entire team on that very special recognition. There's still lots of work ahead on infrastructure, the affordability challenges, and making sure council is delivering what people expect. But it's important we do take time to reflect on the good things and the positive things that are happening as well. We'll have more to say at our final meeting, so I'll save it for there. We've also, of course, got a few meaty issues to still get through today, which is important that we focus our attentions on that. But thank you again. Great. So I'll move through to conflict of interest declarations. Any conflicts for members to declare? No. Committee minutes of recommended items. First up is the Traffic Subcommittee from the 28th of August. I'd like to invite Councillor Shaw to move the adoption of the balance of the minutes.
That the minutes of the Committee Iti Arawaka Traffic Subcommittee meeting held on the 28th of August 2025 be adopted. That's pages 11 to 22, with the exceptions of items 5A to 5I.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tupou, any discussion? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against no. Declare that carried. So that's all collectively, sorry, yes, so that's all done as a block?
Moved in block, so
Yep.
yeah, items 5A to 5I also be adopted.
Okay, sorry, apologies. So with all the rest, is there any items that we wish to take individually? No, so happy to move.
Yeah, and that items 5A to 5I be adopted.
Cool. So I move seconded by Councillor Mitchell. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against no. Declare that carried. Thank you, sorry. Now we move through to item B, which is the Policy, Finance and Strategy Committee. Pass it over to Councillor Mitchell.
I move that the minutes of the Committee Ratonga Rangatopu Me Te Rautaki Policy, Finance and Strategy Committee meeting held on 9th of September 2025 be adopted. That's pages 51 to 58 of the agenda, with the exception of item 5.
I have a seconder for that. Councillor Dyer, any discussion? Those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Item 5.
I move that item 5 be adopted. That's endorsing the final Te Wherenga, our engagement framework document, attached as Appendix 1 to the report.
Seconder for that. Councillor Edwards, any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Moving through to item 7, which is a miscellaneous item. Item A, which is Te Nānai Pool and Fitness budget update. I'd like to invite Ian Brown, our Head of Aquatics, and Andrea Blackshaw, Director of Neighbourhoods and Communities, up to the table to speak to this report. Any comments you'd like to make, team, and then we'll open it up for questions. Thanks.
Kia ora tātou. We'll take the paper as read. We're seeking some direction from elected members today on the underspend in their Te Nānai Pool project. We've proposed 4 options for you and outlined the advantages and the disadvantages of each of those options. And those options are to take the money as a saving, to install solar panels, to install a public spa pool, or defer this decision for the new council, who can consider it in the context of the wider program of investment in solar power and against other priorities. And we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from members? Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, just noting with regard to solar panels that there's a initial estimate, and it mentions in paragraph 15 there would need to be further scope to confirm it as affordable within the budget. What would the process be from here on, particularly if it came out not to be affordable within the existing budget?
If it wasn't affordable, it would need to come back to council for another decision.
Any other questions? Councillor Dyer.
Yeah, paragraph 13 talks about how the facility was built to accommodate solar potentially being added on down the track. Does this mean this would be an easier facility to put solar on than, say, another community facility down the track?
Yes.
Any other questions on that front? there were some queries, and I know we've got you in here, around, if you were to put solar panels in, would this be an optimal location in comparison to other sites in the city? I mean, whether you wanted to cover some commentary on that, or you in some perspective. I know this has come through to different committees.
Yeah, just to confirm, so the location to add solar to the Ngaengae pool is definitely a good project to start with, because it's already designed with solar in mind, and it's a very large energy user. So ultimately, the key benefit is actually around reducing future operating costs. The second point is that, and I think it's alluded to in the paper a little bit later on, there is a wider program of work to look at solar opportunities across council, and that was previously flagged in terms of the closed Wainyamata landfill potentially could be suitable for a solar farm, or other facilities, including our head office building, which was also built with solar in mind. So if this project is approved for Ngaengae, the procurement process could be structured so that it allows for adding on solar and other facilities later on. So you wouldn't have to wait to do a procurement for the whole program and then do Ngaengae. You could actually use Ngaengae as the trigger point for that process.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Mitchell?
Yeah, in terms of generating power to meet the pool's needs, would the pool use all of the power generated off these panels, or would it be feeding back into the grid as well?
Pretty much it's designed to feed power to the pool, because it's a very large energy user. I mean, there may be times when the heat pumps are not running that some of that energy might then be exported, but by and large it would be designed to power the pool.
And would it provide any benefits in terms of resilience after, say, a major emergency or something like that? Would that power be accessible if the grid went down, or if that facility was deemed to be usable in a case of an emergency?
I have to come back to you on this one. In principle, it's not a facility that would be prioritised in terms of an emergency. You'd be looking at the hubs, for example, and they don't currently have solar or batteries. The pool, effectively the water body, is like a massive battery, but whether or not you could run it if there is an extended power cut across the valley, that's something that we would have to come back to you on.
Yep. Okay, any other questions? No questions. So we've got 4 options in front of us. Does anyone want to propose an option? Councillor Briggs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to propose option 3B, the installation of solar panels, as the motion that we consider.
Do I have a seconder for that? Oh, quite a few hands. Councillor Barrett, I'm seeing first. Okay. Councillor Briggs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For me, this has been a lot of work has gone to this for many years. I want to acknowledge you and the team for exploring options over the last 5 around how we can actually move more towards electrification of our council. The solar panels make sense to me because of its cost saving to our organisation. It's invest now in the capital over the life of the long-term plan. It will be paying for itself and then some as time goes on. It's a logical move. As a member of the project steering group, alongside yourself, Mr. Mayor, and officers, we thought about this in the long run of how could we move it to being a solar facility, and that's why it was designed and built in the way that it was, to actually cater for this opportunity. It makes perfect sense to do it now. If in the long run it was going to add more expense, I wouldn't be recommending it. But right now it makes sense for us financially as well as from a sustainability perspective.
Councillor Stellinger.
I'm not supportive of this in the principle that when you have a project with a large contingency sum and you don't spend it, at the end of the project you look for ways to spend what's left over, because there's plenty of occasions when we can't fit within a budget. We need to increase the budget and spend more. I note that the break-even period's more like 14 or 15 years, because the payback, of course, doesn't reflect the cost of your capital over those years. So not the kind of investment you'd make for financial reasons. I understand there's other reasons for environmentally, I suppose, using less electricity. But I think this is something that should be considered during the annual plan up against all our other priorities rather than just a one-off kind of ad hoc feeling decision right now.
Any other views? Okay, so just to say that I'm happy to support option B on the basis that through this project we did always anticipate that this was an option. This isn't something that is suddenly being put on the council at the last minute to spend a budget that didn't get spent. I disagree with that. We always flagged that if there was budget left over, we would look at ways to either meet the desires of the community in regards to spaces in that facility, or to look at how we can bring the operational costs down. This is an obvious one and how we can do that. If we weren't looking to install solar panels, which would offset the high energy costs of that facility, then I would be suggesting that we take the saving, absolutely, in my view. So on that basis, Councillor Briggs.
Thank you for enabling a right of reply, Mr. Mayor. I hear your points, Councillor Stallinger. I think this truly is a financial decision to make. Many businesses and households across our country and across the world have been installing solar for cost savings. It's not instant. It's not going to be felt in the next annual plan or in the next 3 years. However, our organisation at the moment has really high projected rates increases, and any way we can potentially reduce those rates over years to come for future generations makes financial sense to me.
Okay, so we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, no. Declare that carried. Okay, thank you very much. Moving through to item B, which is recent changes to the Resource Management Act and exception and withdrawal options for the proposed district plan. It's on page 83. We've got Nathan and Tim. I'll pass it over to you, and then we'll see if there's any questions.
I'm happy to take the paper as read, but also happy to talk through particular parts of it if required. The paper is about, I guess, providing a briefing of what the recent changes are to the Resource Management Act and what that means for Council's proposed district plan, and presents two options for that, one being the withdrawal of the proposed district plan, and one being seeking a partial exemption for what would be most of the proposed district plan. I'm aware there's a level of interest around how this applies to the notable trees chapter of the proposed district plan, and I'm happy to talk to that now in advance of the rest of the presentation. So the notable trees part of the proposed district plan is within what's called the historical and cultural values part of the plan, and that's alongside the historical heritage and the sites and areas of significance to Māori chapters. These chapters are primarily about protecting particular aspects of both public land and private land from further development. Doesn't mean that you can't do development, just means that there's often a resource consent requirement attached to that development in order to protect the particular aspect. The option 2, which talks about a partial exemption being applied for, the exemption package excludes those parts of the proposed district plan that are about protecting things on public-private land, like the historical and cultural values part and the natural environment part. And that's largely because we think that seeking an exemption for those parts would probably result in the application being declined based on the discourse and what we've heard from central government. Central government doesn't see those parts of district plans being part of the future resource management system that's currently being worked on. And I think there's a risk of, if those are included in an application for an exemption, that the entire application gets rejected and all those other good improvements that the proposed district plan would result in would be lost. Notable trees is a little bit different in that notable trees are only identified in the proposed district plan and the operative district plan with the approval of the landowner. So it may be that the government is more amenable, I suppose, to giving an exemption to a notable trees chapter on the basis that those trees are only being identified and protected with the landowner's approval. So I guess it's a long-winded way of saying that it is viable to include the notable trees chapter in that package that would be part of the exemption package. It does add more complexity to that exemption process and is already a very complex process, but it's, yeah, it is a viable option that's available to council, and there's no legal reason why you couldn't include it.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any questions? Maybe if we deal with the notable trees aspect first while we've talked about it, and then to maybe the broader decision which we're going to need to make. Councillor Mitchell?
Yeah, just coming to the suggestion that the minister might reject our whole application based on one chapter, the notable trees chapter. Does the minister have discretion to accept an application in part, or is it all or nothing?
The minister can accept an application in part, so there can be, I suppose, a bit of a back and forth between the council and the government. This process is all a bit of an unknown. It's not a process that anyone's gone through before because it's a new part of the Resource Management Act. But the government can grant part of an exemption application.
And has there been any signal from the government that they would be likely to reject parts of a district plan that already exist and are in effect? In our current plan, there is a notable trees chapter. We do protect notable trees. Are they likely to reject something that's already in practice and been in practice for a long time?
They haven't really provided much direction on what would be able to get an exemption. In the legislation, there's some specific things that get an automatic exemption, and for Hutt City Council's proposed district plan, that's the natural hazards chapter. There's also some criteria that the government will look at, or the minister will look at, to, I guess, justify an exemption. There's nothing that clearly points to whether something's already in a district plan, in an operative district plan, and there's kind of a catch-all thing, which means that effectively, if a good enough case can be made, then the minister may grant an exemption, but there's nothing that points specifically to whether it's in the operative district plan or not.
I think I heard Councillor Edwards, then Councillor Dyer. Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. Could you speak a little bit about where would we be at were the council of a mind to withdraw this, the proposed district plan, in terms of whether we've just wasted years and years of effort and millions of dollars developing this plan that has never been tested by way of submissions. The hearings wouldn't have gone ahead if we adopt this option. And then where we land with the rewrite of the RMA, and I've read several times in your report that, you know, we could well have to write a new district plan. Do we sort of go back to square? Does that mean we sort of going back to square one with the operative district plan, and basically all the stuff that's in our proposed district plan, as we maybe move to a regional planning approach, is all wasted? It's been because it's never been tested.
I suppose you could say that all those costs have been wasted. They've certainly been spent, and you haven't ended up with the key output that you expected out of that spend. There's a lot of costs that have gone into developing the proposed district plan that will the council will continue to benefit from. The information, the costs that have been spent on technical reports on things like natural hazards. Those are technical reports that will still be able to inform any future district planning process, and also in any other work of council. But this is a process that's taken 5 or 6 years to get to this point, and the intention was to end in a proposed district plan that ultimately becomes an operative district plan. and that would no longer be the case. As far as what this means for what comes next, there's a lot of uncertainty about what comes next because we know the government is working on new legislation to replace the Resource Management Act. They've signalled that that will be public, at least as a bill, by the end of the year. So I would expect that to be December. And while they've signalled some of the things that they're looking at for the new resource management system, we don't have a lot of detail on what exactly it will mean for councils and district planning. So I suppose the key thing for this process is will council be required to immediately start work on a new proposed district plan when that new legislation comes into place? We don't know yet. There's likely to be some sort of transitional stage where you would keep working with your operative district plan or proposed district plan, if you have one, while you're starting to work under the new legislation. But we don't know how long that would be, and we don't know what the details of that would be yet. And that's one of the challenges with this decision, is you may have a proposed district plan, if it gets all the way through to being operative, that has a relatively limited shelf life because there's this other district plan that you're having to develop that would replace it in a few years. However, because of the uncertainty, you don't know whether that's going to be a few years, whether that's going to be 7 years, for example. We just don't know at this stage.
Councillor Dyer, then Councillor Brown.
Yeah, sorry, my question was still on trees. Just around the workability, if the minister was to pull out trees when it gets to him, if we push it through now, the trees is quite an isolated chapter that if it was removed by the minister, it would still be pretty workable within our operative district plan.
Yes, it would be workable. Effectively, what would happen is all parts of the proposed district plan that relate to trees would be withdrawn at that point.
I think we have covered, yes. I think the answer is yes, right?
Yes.
Yeah, just conscious, I want us to focus on the bigger issue here because it is quite important. Councillor Brown.
So if we choose the option to withdraw the plan, no matter what iteration it is in this uncertainty, even if we were to have some decision that we continue with district plan in some iteration, because we've withdrawn, we would have to start from ground zero again. That's my first question. And my second question is, if we choose option 2 to work with exemptions, if some new law and our exemptions were accepted, if the new legislation came down, we would still carry on with the exemption work and just transfer it into the new rules.
I'll start with your second question. I think it's a bit more straightforward. We don't know at this stage what that new legislation's going to require of us. I suspect that that new legislation, if the council applied for an exemption and was able to continue with part of the proposed district plan, I suspect that that council will be able to continue with that part of the district plan that has that exemption. I think given the short period of time between these changes to the Resource Management Act and when the new legislation is likely to come in, I think it was anticipated that we would be continuing with some of our proposed district plan processes under the Resource Management Act. And the first question was about if the council withdrew the proposed district plan, would the council need to effectively start again? Under the new legislation, it's likely that the way that proposed district plans or district plans are developed will be substantially different from what we do under the current district plan, under the current RMA, I should say. So I think regardless, the council will need to prepare a new proposed district plan, regardless of whether the current proposed district plan is withdrawn or not. Does that answer the question? Thank you.
Madam Chief Executive, if you just want to comment on that broader piece.
I've been speaking to MFE officials with my Taituara hat on. I think it comes down to this. If we don't go for an exemption, we have the fairly messy old set of rules that we'd be working with. And in effect, the stuff we've done at the moment is parked. When the legislation comes out, and we think it will not cover all the same things that the current legislation covers, we still will be able to lift and shift some of those things, but it will be into a regionally prepared plan. So that's what happens if we do nothing with the exemption. If you go for the exemption and it's approved, what that means is that you have a 3/4 of a code, because the exemption is not to go with all of it that is up to date. There would still need to be a regionally prepared plan for the new world and the new legislation, but it would probably do some of the lift and shift from the stuff that you have already got right there now, because it's gone through the exemption. Whereas if you don't go for the exemption, we have to hook it out of the proverbial cupboard. That's crudely the decision that Council's faced with today, if that helps, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Mitchell? Yep.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could explain how the automatic exemption works. One of the things that is automatically exempt is work relating to natural hazards. Would we still have to apply for an exemption, or is it saying that we can do whatever we want in the natural hazard space and it will just go through?
With the automatic exemptions, those can carry on without needing to apply for an exemption. So in the case of those parts of the district plan that relate to natural hazards, you don't need to apply for an exemption for those parts.
Thank you. If I could just have a quick couple more. There was some concern raised a bit earlier on in this, when this was put on pause, about the cost that some submitters have gone to in terms of putting in requesting changes they would like for particular properties which could otherwise have been private plan changes. Submissions of that nature covered under option 2, or are they left out? Or would they still be required essentially to do private plan changes, whichever way we go? Things like rezoning, I think, were some of the requests there.
So the types of submissions that are purely seeking a rezoning, and what's most frequent is what we'd call an upzoning. So normally it's rezoning from one residential zone to a residential zone that provides for a greater density. Those types of submissions would stay live submissions. Those provisions are effectively part of that exemption package. So those people that have invested the time and the money in making submissions, trying to further their development aspirations, those would effectively be able to carry on if the exemption is approved.
So only if we go with option 2, the exemption
That's
option?
Only if we go with option 2. Under option 1, which would be complete withdrawal of the proposed district plan, people who have those sorts of development aspirations would either need to apply for a private plan change request or wait for some future plan process to enable what they're seeking.
Thank you. And the other question I had about, you talked about how there will be a transitional phase, I think, either way, where things are going to get a little bit messy. And I was wondering in particular about the regional plan, which was ahead of us in terms of development and approval. And I'm just wondering, if we withdraw our plan, how out of whack are we going to be with the regional plan, and how complicated is that going to make hearings over the next few years?
I don't think what happens with the regional plan adds that much more complexity for our planning processes and the resource consent processes over the coming years. The existing regional plan will continue to exist, and developers will continue to need to operate under that in the same way that they operate under our operative district plan. The regional council will also need to be considering whether it's seeking exemptions for changes to its plan. They're in also a complicated situation where they're in the middle of a plan change process, but because of some added complexities, they still need to apply for an exemption despite having got to their hearings. But I don't think it makes that much difference to our planning processes in the coming years or resource consent processes.
Councillor Stellinger?
Yes, thank you. Just a follow-up question to the discussion before about upscaling opportunities. Are you aware of the extent to which the number of developers or the extent of developments which may be affected by that?
I think I'd be guessing. I don't think I could give you that in a much accuracy. It's not vast, large areas of the. It's normally the large lot zone that we're talking about. Yeah, it is more around the fringes, but to be able to give you any definite numbers, I'd be guessing. I should say though that there are some submitters that are seeking the reverse effectively. So where the proposed district plan is proposing a medium density residential zone, where some submitters actually want it to be downzoned to a large lot residential zone because they want to have, I guess, less development in their neighbourhoods. So it does go both ways.
Any other questions? Councillor Brown.
We talked about the notable trees. Maybe something we can go forward with. The SASM sites and areas of significance to Māori. How much impact do you think that's got on the government of why they're doing this? And why would we not try and move forward with having the SASMs included in option 2?
Yeah, it's a difficult thing for me to answer. The government is aware of the council's proposed district plan and what's proposed with regard to sites and areas of significance to Māori. How much that has influenced their proposal, I couldn't say. As far as whether the council wanted to seek an exemption for that part, I guess it's like I was saying before, I think an exemption for that part would be highly unlikely to be approved by the government. No, that's not saying that the council shouldn't apply for it, except that you're putting, I guess, you're creating where the government may say, or the minister may say, that the entire exemption application should be declined because there are particular things in there that they don't approve of. Like we said before, the government could come back to council and say, we're happy to approve an exemption for these parts, but not that part. But there is also that risk that they say, no, we'll just decline everything.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you. Can you just remind me of the timeframes for making this decision?
The timeframe in the legislation is that the council must withdraw the proposed district plan by the 15th of January, unless an exemption has been applied for. So that's the timeframe. I'm a little bit foggy on the details of what happens if council applies for an exemption and that application process is still carrying over past the 15th of January. I suspect that it would push out until that exemption process is complete. There's not a time frame on the minister on how quickly they need to consider those applications for exemptions.
And my other question is around, this is not something that the public have any say on, it's our decision to move it for the government. Yeah.
That's correct.
Councillor Shaw. Just Councillor Brown, you've just got your microphone on.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right. Councillor Shaw.
Yeah, Nathan, this is a little bit of a hypothetical question, I suppose, but just looking forward, if there's a change of government, how does this affect anything that we're currently doing, like right now?
You're right, that's a hypothetical question. It's a tricky thing that we've been dealing with throughout or council's been dealing with, I should say, throughout the district plan review. The last government, they also proposed some new legislation that would have replaced the Resource Management Act, and when the current government came in, they completely undid that and are in the process of preparing their new legislation to replace the Resource Management Act. I guess it'll be a bit of crystal ball gazing to think about what a new incoming government would do, there. But there hasn't been any signals anyway that I've seen about what would happen following the next election.
If I may remind members, council officers have to work with the law as it is, not as the law as it may be, whenever that happens, even if we did have a crystal ball. So there's a very clear requirement for us to make a decision at some point, either to, within the timescales that Nathan's indicated, to stop or to apply for an exemption. Put crudely, they're the decisions we have in front of us, and who knows what the future may bring.
Okay, is there any other questions? Okay, so moving through to the decisions that are in front of us. My preference is for us to make a decision today, given that we obviously are a council that has been going through this process for the last 3 years. We have a good understanding of our district plan, and of course we will have a number of new people around the table who will then be required, and I've got no doubt they'll be able to catch up, no question, but then there would be a requirement of a decision before the 15th of January, which basically means December. And I just think that we've got all the information I think we need to make a decision. Do we agree with that? Is there anyone who disagrees with that? No. Okay, that's good. So now just wanting to see views on what approach we take. One option is to go for option 2, which seeks the exemption with the exception of adding notable trees back in, because I believe that's, yep. Seeing nods on that. Yep. Okay. Does anyone have a contrary view to that approach? I think this would be quite a good one for us if we can all be on the same page. That would be ideal. And before we move any motion, Councillor Stallinger.
My microphone's falling apart. Yeah, I wasn't sure on this one. I was quite keen to hear from Councillor Dyer's perspective, given his role throughout this whole process. It is a big cost, the $765,000 plus the staff time, so you might as well say $1 million to progress with the plan as it stands. So I'd just like to hear a bit more from those who are more closely involved, from myself, as to why that is a good spend.
Yep, happy to pass it to Councillor Dyer. I simply was going to give him the opportunity as the chair of our district plan as well, so I think it's good timing. Yep.
Yeah, I'm happy to move option B, but proceed with the exemption. Also give myself a right of reply at the end because I've got sort of 2 parts I want to talk on. Yeah, I'm in favour of moving forward with this exemption. I think we need to remind ourselves that we've been on a very long journey now for 6 years, and the whole way along that process, there has been a number of changes of government, changes of national policy statements, and the advice along the way at every step from our officers and from the government is to continue with this process, which we have done in good faith getting to this stage. We've already invested, as I say, 6 years. My read is we've probably spent as a city between $10 and $15 million on this process. Walking away now would mean that investment delivers 0 outcomes for our city. The only reason we're in this position is because the government's changed direction. And ironically, if we hadn't have paused to do Plan Change 56, as the government required, we'd have a new operative plan in place right now, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. The plan is 95% complete, so I think spending a little bit more to get across the finish line makes far more sense than abandoning it just meters from the end. The legislation includes a minister's exemption for any other reasons, and I think the situation is exactly what it was written for. There's very few councils that are as far along the process as us. I think we are the furthest along in terms of this journey. Withdrawing it now would lock out over 500 submissions of people that have engaged with us in good faith. And some of these, as officers I mentioned, are based on new housing and new development, and I don't think it's fair to them if we pull the plug at this last stage. The plan also enables, obviously, more housing, but better zoning, definitely a stronger climate response, particularly around our harbour communities, and much clearer infrastructure planning for our infrastructure providers, which our city needs right now, not in 5 to 10 years' time, and there's just so much uncertainty in my mind. And if we don't proceed, those developers will need to lodge their own private plan changes. For many, they just won't bother. It'll just be too expensive for them to go down a private plan change route. They've piggybacked off our process. I remember at the time when we had to choose with Shaftesbury Grove, which became Plan Change 58, whether they would just kind of get lumped in with our district plan change, and they kind of given up waiting. And I was kind of like, look, our district plan is now finally into the final stages. Jump on board, it'll save you some money, and thank God we didn't do that, because that's now operative. Plan change 58, they would now be caught up in this stage here. The reality is that even if the plan only operates for a year or two before that legislation arrives, that's still 2 or 3 years of real world benefits. It also means that when our district plan gets sticky taped together with all the district plans in the region, it's going to be far more workable for us, because at a start we're going to be using national planning standards, which were a requirement in 2019. So good luck trying to stick all that together when it's using just a completely different language. And if we do decide that we must withdraw some parts of the plan, I think we do need to make it clear that this is a decision that's being forced on us by the central government. It's not a choice that we've had to make. And at the end of the day, this is about respecting the time, the money, and the trust that our city has already put into this process, and ensuring that that process isn't wasted. And I've got a few more things I'll touch on more on the full district plan, which I'll do at the end of the debate.
Thanks. So Councillor Dye has moved to the recommendation there. Is that seconded by Councillor Edwards? So for clarity, that is to apply for the exemption, which also does include notable trees. Okay, is there any further comment on that? Councillor Brown.
I support that, but I feel personally frustrated and angry, not angry, but frustrated that the one that we're putting through is notable trees and sites of significance for Māori is being left out. So if this is not racist actions, I don't know what is from the government, but I support option 2.
Councillor Briggs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support your opening remarks around making a decision now. I know 6 years ago, when many of you joined this council, one of the first decisions we had to make was a district plan change, with very little involvement in that planning process, and it was highly unfair, and there was a political kick to touch. So I think it's on us to make the decision today. It's not a decision that's easy to make. I am very frustrated by Councillor Brown's raised, also Councillor Dyer, having governments constantly change direction and policy and force us to have to make decisions that are hard, costly, and actually go against community will is highly, highly backwards when we're elected to make local decisions for our people. It is challenging when we've invested so much in time, energy, strategic priority, and also our community by listening to them and giving them opportunity to participate, to be able to have the process cut completely differently at the very final stage is annoying at best. And I would think, for the government, actually embarrassing to have this put on our community. I do support the recommendation in front of us. I think it's the best option that we've got. We are stuck in a quagmire, but it's our job to make hard decisions, and today that's one of them.
Councillor Tupou.
Kia ora, Mr. Mayor. I also feel that we're sort of hamstrung yet again by central government. And just before I came onto council, I was involved with the freshwater policy review through the Whaitua Committee. And of course, a lot of that work, millions of dollars, thousands of hours, was thrown out the window as well. Now with the, your worship, the coastal natural character, we've got people telling us about how important the ngahere is, how important the penguins are, and all of our ecology that we as kaitiaki are obliged to take that leadership role. So with reluctance, I support option 2. There's no other clear path forward. But I think we keep top of mind that I think Mana Whenua recently with Wellington City Council published a tātou ki uta, tātou ki tai strategy for Wellington City Council and their coastal strategy. So let us look around the region, as was mentioned before, and see how we can collaborate and continue to uphold that kaitiakitanga. Kia ora.
Councillor Shaw.
Yes, I also concur with all my colleagues' comments and agree with option 2. I just would like to say, thanks to the officers for the past 6 years being on the district plan for this novice person over the city's plan book and being able to show us the way forward with this, and appreciate the work that you've done there. It would be an absolute waste of time and money if we didn't make a decision now to move forward. And I think it's unfair to leave it for any incoming new council. So I'd certainly agree with moving forward today on the decision option, my choice.
Deputy Mayor Lewis, then Councillor Edwards.
I'll keep this short. Like Councillor Brown said, frustration comes to mind, and that's the first thing I wrote down about this whole process. I am supportive of option 2. Parts of it, I agree. I don't agree with the things being excluded, but if we can't get traction on work we've already done, and this is the only way, we have to go forward with it. The council has been doing great things in the city, and I just think the growth that we've got is good. There are things in there that, as I said, like the heritage and those chapters, I would have liked to see dealt with. It's been like decades that hasn't been looked at. But yeah, we've done it, we've got it this far, and let's just keep going. But frustration is still there. So thank you.
Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, this is one of these damned if you do, damned if you don't decisions. I pretty much agree with everything people have said. Also agree with Councillor Stellinger that $1 million is not an insignificant sum, and we could end up with that amount, you know, only having a dividend of a year or two before events overtake us. But I do think to keep faith with our city that we need to press on, and I think it will put us in a better position with the environment that we may be heading for if there isn't a change of government. Just defending the government somewhat, you know, cross-party there has been calls for overhaul of the RMA. It's just become too bloated and complicated and so on. And in fairness to the government, I guess they're sending a signal to councils that you know, don't waste time doing more work. There's big changes coming. It's just that this council, and I think Waitaki District Council, are so close to getting their proposed plan across the line that it's hurting us more than others. But I think we're doing the right thing by going for option 2 on balance.
Councillor Stellinger, then Councillor Mitchell.
Thanks for the leeway to speak a second time. I just wanted to clarify, having listened to Councillor Dyer, I'll be supportive of option 2.
Thank you. Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you. Also supportive of option 2, and agree with the point that was made that if there wasn't to be any exemptions, then there wouldn't be an exemption clause in this law. They would have just put everything on hold altogether. So I think we owe it to our community to achieve what we can through this exemption process. I'm very happy to see notable trees included, not because it's a big thing, but actually just looking at that one issue, it's a bit of a microcosm of a lot of things that have gone into this plan. Councillor Dyer talked about some people who had subdivision and other such changes that they wanted to achieve through this. I met a gentleman on White Lines East who told me he'd been trying to protect a tree on his property for 30 years, and it's finally on the list, and I don't want to be the guy who has to tell him it's been taken off again. The other thing about the notable trees is that we made some rule changes, and again, well, not significant in the broader scheme of things. They possibly are now some of the most progressive rules in the country, and one thing we can do through this process is to show leadership across our region, and I certainly hope that the changes that we can get through here will float to the top when it becomes a regional plan. And also the government can see that we do care about these things and our community do care about these things rather than just throwing our hands up in them. I don't know if they have any plans to enable tree protection under the new RMA. It was them who put the current rules in 2012. But I think, again, we need to show some leadership where we can here and impress upon them that some things like this are important to our communities. Looking at natural hazards, I think if we didn't do anything about that one in particular, you know, I'm not going to be part of the group of people who knew hazards and sat on their hands and didn't do whatever they could about it. So we've made some really important changes there to address natural hazards. And of course, those need to go through in the name of protecting our community. So very happy to support option 2.
Councillor Morgan.
Kia ora, I totally support option 2. I agree with everything that's been said. And for me, it's about leadership. And we've been leading the way with this whole piece of work, and we need to keep leading and being strong and being convicted to the why we're doing this. And it's for our residents and it's for our city. and for our region actually to help others as well. So totally support option 2. Thank you.
Been very generous and going to go around give everyone the opportunity on this one. So Councillor Parkin and if you like, Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, likewise, I will be supporting option 2. It recognises the investment that we've put into, and the councils before us have put into this. It would be doing our community a disservice, and I hope that, as others have mentioned, the good things about this that hopefully we get through will make it easier for the region to put together a cohesive plan that's already gone through the testing process to make sure that those are good and useful decisions to be able to be picked up. So, ngā mihi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just appreciate the comments that everyone has said, which has put some really good clarity on the decision, and that I'll be supporting option 2.
Thank you, Councillor. Just to make a brief comment before I pass it back to Councillor Dyer to close out the discussion. I think Councillor Mitchell touched on the point I was going to make, because I agree with everything that's been said around natural hazard mapping. I think we have a duty to make sure that residents in our community are aware of the natural hazards that they live around when people are looking to purchase their own home, make one of the biggest financial decisions that they'll make. To have all the information is absolutely critical when we know we have a number of quite significant hazards that we need to contend with here in Te Awakarangi and Kitai. So in my mind, that's one where we have a moral obligation to get that information out there as we navigate how we deal with our changing climate and the risk from natural disasters. Also, this may well be the last time we can truly influence as a council what our district plan looks like, depending on what the regional structure or system curtails. We might be one vote of 6 or 9 or whatever that looks like across the region. So for us, I think having an operative district plan to go into that regional discussion where we can lead with maybe some of the more progressive stuff or the more up-to-date stuff when others maybe aren't so up-to-date is a stronger position to put lower Hutt in and how we influence that regional conversation, which I think is key as well. And I suppose the final one for me is that if we didn't go for an exemption, I do fear all of the unknown firefights that we will then have. Even though we can say, well, this is a position the government has put us in, I fear that we will then have a number of residents who have in good faith engaged in this process, as others have alluded to, maybe not seeking private plan changes or other things, that we then start to uncover a whole heap of unintended consequences, which we didn't realise, and that could really bog down the next council and also put a bit of tension between our relationship with the Crown as well on that, albeit it would be their fault, not ours, if we chose that option. So I'll pass it over to Councillor Dyer to close us out. Thanks.
Cool, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, it's been a real honour to be the chair of this Ngaengae committee. And with the timing of this directive from the government and the consequences of decisions we're having to make today, our last committee meeting a few weeks ago needs to be postponed or didn't proceed. So this is the last opportunity, and so I wanted to take the moment to just make a few acknowledgements and thank yous. Firstly was thank you to our officers who have spent 6 years with us, and I know some of us have been with us through that entire time, so thank you so much for your advice along the way. It has been such a journey. Thank you to our mana whenua reps who have sat on the subcommittee under Simon Edwards, and particularly Richard Tioni, who has sat on it as a member of the committee over the last 3 years. Thank you to my fellow elected members who have sat on the committee alongside me. Thank you to the public who took part in our draft process and also the 500 plus submissions that we got through the more legislated RMA process. And our final thanks to the panel who will hopefully take this review through its final stages. So thank you to everyone that's been part of it.
Great. So I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Those
Move by division.
by division. Okay, it should be easy because everyone said their view. So all those in favour, raise your hand. I declare that carried unanimously. Yep. So we will. Happy you don't want to go around the whole room, Josh? No, okay, good. Great. Okay, that is good. And thank you, Councillor Dyer. Can I just say thank you to you for your leadership in the district plan. I would say that over the past 3 years, you have navigated a whole range of issues with a heap of journalism and working with our officers. I think you can be incredibly proud of where we've got into, and also the fact that we're navigating at the 11th hour challenging issues like this, and to get a unanimous decision around the table is absolutely fantastic. So I just want to say thank you to you and to the team that I know worked alongside you on this, so well done. It wasn't always like that when we dealt with district plan issues when I was a councillor. I think there's a few out there, so a very, very different process, I'd say. So thank you very much. Cool. Okay, so now we move through to our next item, which is addition to Delegations Register. And this is the Fast Track Approvals Act on page 110. Tim, welcome back up. Any quick comments you want to make?
No, nothing to add from me. You can probably tell I leave Nathan to do the tricky reports and I do the more straightforward ones. So, yeah.
Any questions? Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, just wondering if you have we know what the proposal is that may come to us, a high level idea of what kind of things Hutt City Council would even talk about in a submission on that.
Certainly to give the example that we know before us, which is the quarry. So the type of issues we would be looking at there are the effects of what they are proposing to do. So the range of effects for that particular one would be things like ecological effects, landscape, and traffic and construction effects to neighbours. So if you like, a resource consent on a grand scale, but certainly those are the type of issues that we would be looking to provide comment on. They will provide a series of expert reports and we will review them and effectively say, yes, we agree, or no, we don't. And also probably the main role for us, given it is a fast track legislation, would be what are the conditions of consent? How will they control the management to mitigate noise and things like that?
Great. Any other questions? Move the recommendation. The Council delegates the Chief Executive all powers, functions and duties under the Fast Track Approvals Act 2024, authority to delegate to officers. Move that. Seconder. Councillor Dyer, any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Item D, end of Triennium delegations. Invite our Chief Executive to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a standard report of the type you get at the end of each triennium. The only difference to last time really is paragraph 17 to 19 where it refers to water. Clearly we have an advisory oversight group which has been overseeing that service delivery model. That met on Friday. I sent you this morning the latest update from that, which indicates that the directors have been appointed and we expect those announcements on the 30th of October. There's still some work to progress foundation documents, which ultimately will need to come back. But just to point out that the delegations this time obviously include doing anything necessary to make sure that the urgent nature of anything around water isn't held up. That is not just something that I'm seeking, it's that all chief executives in the water entity are seeking. As whenever I use delegations, even though I have them, I do consult those around me in the context of living in a world of no surprises. So hopefully with that in mind, Mr. Mayor, it's acceptable to Council to approve the recommendations in front of you.
Thank you. Councillor Mitchell.
Just in terms of that advisory oversight group, most of the members, I think, are elected members, mayors in most instances. So what happens until the elected members on that group are replaced?
As the update referred to this morning, there will need to be a partners committee established in December of this year. In terms of each council's representative, that will be for each council to determine who that is. The AOG we had anticipated would be disestablished. It may just need to hang on until the partners committee comes into place. And in the meantime, given that there are people who won't be on it, that's why we will need to rely on chief executives delegations across the region. So either way, irrespective of whoever's returned, we'll all be in the same position, Councillor Mitchell.
Happy? Okay, so we'll move recommendations 1 through to 12. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Stellinger, any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Okay, moving through to item 8, which is minutes. So I'll move that the council minutes from the 31st of July and 19th of August be confirmed as true and correct. Councillor Mitchell, you've got a correction?
Yeah, thank you. Just under the Mayoral Statement section, there was an acknowledgement there to the passing of Chris Whaiumu. It's Whaiumu with an M, not an N there, and I think it's a couple of instances it's mentioned there, if that could just be corrected. Thank you.
Thank you for picking up on that. We'll make sure we get that corrected. Anything else? Okay, so with that correction, I'll move the minutes, seconded by Councillor Briggs. All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. And then we've got committee minutes without recommended items. Happy to take all of the collectives, so that's A through to D. And we can also note the minutes from the Hutt Valley Services Committee be noted. 9E, happy with that? Okay, I'll move that, seconded by Councillor Briggs. All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Moving through to 10, which is the Sealing Authority. I'll move recommendations 1 through to 3, seconded by Councillor Parkin. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. 11, I've received no questions, so that means we will move into the public for items 13 and 14. So I'll move that, seconded by Councillor Briggs. All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Now, just before we do that, Te Awa, I just wanted to acknowledge you as well. So thank you so much for coming along, and I'm looking forward to seeing you around this council table shortly. So it's great, but thank you for coming in. Kia ora te awa.